Allison, and this is going to be a 3-part series on making button jewelry. You can wear it or you can sell it, but there are different things to think about for each of those things. Depending on if you're getting buttons from your family's button box or getting large lots on eBay. I sell mine in some small shops, so I can give some tips about that. If you want to make any of these and sell them though, attribution or a link to the video is great, but definitely not necessary. This is the first video about gathering supplies. The second one is about actually making the jewelry. And so we have like a bunch of half-made things here. And a couple of just little examples of completed things. The third one is about making this kind of adjustable choker that's got an elastic satin ribbon, a sliding charm, and some adjustable extenders on the back. That's good for selling once you get in the hang of it. In respect to pricing, if you're selling it, my equation that I use to price things for the button jewelry and for any other art that I do is the cost of supplies times 2, and then I add a per hour fee. I usually charge about $20 per hour for button jewelry, and once everything is kind of gathered up and designed, I can make all of these in an hour or less. For art stuff that I would put in a gallery, that's closer to $30 an hour, and it all kind of depends on what skills I'm using, how skilled I am at them, and how unique they are, how fast I can do them, stuff like that. So first, I'm going to talk about finding buttons, and the most important thing about them is that they either be clean or able to get cleaned. Every once in a while, someone will give me a family button box or something that they don't want anymore, and those will get put in the mix. My own family button box is safely away. One of the best places to get large lots of buttons, though, if you want to sell things, is actually eBay, if you're careful about the search terms that you use. I use things like large lot or pounds or vintage, and sometimes MOP, which stands for mother of pearl. Next, I'm going to talk about reasons to select one type of jewelry or another. They have different price points because there are different places that I sell them. There are places that take certain commissions that I have to calculate into, what makes it worth it for me. And one aspect of that for all of them is it adjustable? Can people who are just walking by pick it up and wear it? Or, for other people, maybe can I give it to someone as a present and be sure that they'll be able to use it? So these little rings are kind of, they have very soft metal and are quite adjustable. So I'm going to be doing some examples of that over here. These are not glued on or anything right now, so I'll be able to do a bunch of them really fast. And then just put them out for sale in a couple days. These are, they use a snap closure, so they can be a different sort of size for each. These cord necklaces have little extenders on the back there, so that's nice. And then these are the chokers, and I think I just talked about them. But yeah, so very adjustable, very flexible, very suitable for just any kind of person to wear. You do want to be careful about the length of ribbon you cut, because while it is adjustable, I usually only go for about a foot long length of ribbon, and that's not going to fit everybody. I just need to do things in a uniform way so that I can advertise as like this is a 12-inch long thing with a 14-inch extension. Another thing to think about when you're deciding what kind to make is what kind of environment is it going to be kept in, and what kind of impacts is it going to uh, get knocked around with. So this is good for environments where it'll suffer a lot of impacts, because it is something I use a lot. It's a cabochon setting or finding. It's like a bezel for those pieces of jewelry where a lot of the time someone will put a picture in the base and then put a cabochon over it, which is just like usually a piece of glass with a flat back and a curve over the front that has kind of a magnifying effect. But for these, it's very handy because it will uh, just be a good place to put the excess thread on the back of a button, which is another thing to consider. Buttons are, I think, more fun with thread. That's what I do for all my jewelry that I sell. I think that's how people know it's a button, and that's why it's fun. But if you're making one that you want to last and look nice for a really long time, don't necessarily use a lighter thread like this. It looks brighter and fun, but it can also get kind of grungy and smudged and stuff over time. So a lot of the time I will use a black thread. I'm going to use darker threads for these. And like when I'm designing some, piece of jewelry, I like to consider, is someone probably going to leave it in on the counter of a bathroom? Is it going to be on the counter of a sink for a while? Or is it going to be, how hard is it going to hit, like wherever it's put down, whatever dresser or side table it's going to go on? And, is it going to be in humidity? Maybe. So I try to plan ahead for that with the kind of adhesives and findings that I use. But this is kind of an older one. Maybe only I can see this because I'm like that with my own stuff, but there's like a tiny, slightly balding place here. And that's bound to happen when a charm is just in the same place for a long time. So these are great, but they do have kind of a lifespan. Just in terms of environment and toughness, the cord necklaces are probably the best bet. These types of settings are good too. They're basically, they do the same bezel thing and are meant for cabochons, but here I can just, they're really meant for doing that specifically with like wristbands. And that will just slide one way or the other. So the bracelets are also pretty nice and adjustable. Another important thing to be aware of is whether or not something has a different inner diameter than outer diameter. So I'm going to hold this up again. This has a outer diameter, you can see like the rim here, and then on the inside you would have to think about what size of cabochon you are using. So you'd need the inner diameter for the cabochon, and you'd need the outer diameter, so you could search on, Amazon or Etsy or wherever you're getting your findings. Speaking of Amazon and Etsy, I tend to use Amazon for kind of common bulk items that I need. Sometimes when they're good enough quality that I don't think they'll break. But Etsy, I usually go for very specific things, like ribbon ends that are, I think these are 22 millimeter wide ribbon ends that I use for the chokers. If you're getting charms, these are usually available on Amazon and in pretty good condition. But when you get them, take into account whether or not they'll actually fit over the extender, or clasp or whatever onto the cord that you're using, because that's a mistake I made with, for instance, these. And it turned out that I had to carefully remove the crimp bead here and then put it back on after I had attached the little dangle there. And that took more time, and that means I was either, losing money or I was charging too little. In terms of specialized findings, I really like using these flat metal beads that are meant for leather cuffs. These little bowl ones are meant for smaller ones like this, and larger ones like this are meant for, larger cuffs, except in this case I'm using them on, the bands of elastic. You do have to be careful with this kind of thing, not just because the inside is a different size than the outside and it's hard to tell what listing you're looking at sometimes, but also because for the chokers it should pinch a little bit in order to keep the charm in place. This is a better example. This is a little bit too small of a bead on the back, but that means it won't just fall around. For necklaces, if you're making your own of any kind, I would recommend a lobster clasp and an extender, which is just a little chain, sometimes with a tiny weight on the end. And in order to attach those to, I usually need to attach them to a ribbon end. I use a very specific kind of jump ring because I don't solder these closed, but I need to be confident that they won't fall apart if someone pulls too hard. I use snappies, which is just a type of jump ring that is engineered so that when it closes properly, you hear a little click and it's easier to tell. I'll do a demonstration of how to use those in, I think, video 2. Yeah. So in the next video, if you want to hear more about that. If you don't, usually, if you're a little more careful, a lower gauge wire jump ring is probably fine as long as it's an oval, because ovals are the strongest option for necklaces that are going to get pulled around. Is that? Hopefully that's showing. And I'll go back to the chokers in the last video, but there are a couple of important things about using a elastic velvet ribbon. Velvet helps the sliding charm have a little bit more grab. It also makes it so that it can slide around with some catch on both ends of the ribbon. It makes things comfortable and makes it something you can nod your head multiple times, as many times as you like, and it still won't kind of crunch and wrinkle the way like a satin ribbon might. It also doesn't show stains from like sweat very much. It will eventually degrade, but not for quite a long time, and not before it's been a lot of fun. These particular ribbons, this particular ribbon is from an Etsy shop. I can't remember what they specialize in, but I was really lucky to find this place, which is a millinery shop that I could order from, or a place that carries hat making supplies. Both of them and all the ribbons that I could find in this one from the first store is 22 millimeters wide. These are 23 millimeters. They both work okay with the different types of sliding bead that I use, and the ribbon ends, which are 22 millimeters long, but for the 23 millimeter stuff, it's easy enough to just kind of compress them a little bit. while I'm attaching the ribbon end. I think that's it for this one. The next video is going to include preparing, that's the making stuff video, and is going to be about preparing buttons, preparing findings and bezels, and just gluing and letting the glue cure, and why and where I use these particular adhesives. I'm not sure if I'm going to have the videos out at different times, but they should be getting posted pretty quickly one after the other. So either I'll see you in a few minutes if you want to watch the next one, or it could be a couple days. Bye.